Welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on optimizing on-prem deployments, a deep dive into BMC Helix's latest releases. Joining me today is Rakeli Nahima and Sayan Banji. They will be presenting today. They will do their formal introduction shortly. We're also joined by a team of panelists that will answer your questions today. So do keep those questions coming in. We want to hear from you. And this is our first webinar of 2026. So welcome everyone that's joined today. Couple of reminders before I hand over to Sayan to get us started. There is the Q&A section of Zoom. You'll find that at the bottom of your screen under the Q&A button. If you do have questions during the slides, please put them in there and we will have roughly 15 minutes or so at the end where we'll answer some of those live. Otherwise, we will, through the duration, answer those questions as well. And if we do have, and time permits, we will run a very quick poll, just asking a few questions to you about where you are with your technology. So with that, I'm now going to hand over to Sayan to do his introductions and formally get us started. And until the end, you will remain on mute. So over to you, Sayan.
Thank you, Sam. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for your time for joining this webinar, the first webinar of 2026. And we're going to talk about optimizing the on-prem deployments, ITSM, okay, and some of the, the latest, features and capabilities, okay. So my name is Shayan Banerjee, and I'm working with BMC software for the past 20 years across various, units like support, R&D, customer engineering, the SEAL team, and now the product management, okay. So that's a nutshell, and I've been into product lines like operations management, AI ops, service management, okay. So with that, let me start off the slides, okay? So this is the agenda. So we'll start off with a quick technologies update slide, okay? And then the sizing, then we'll have a design partnership program. Then we have the product and the capabilities, like what, the new capabilities and the products, okay? And then we talk about security, and then we move on to the deployment improvements, and then we have the day two operations. So that is basically when you have everything installed and deployed, and then as part of day two activities, we want to monitor and we want to maintain. Okay. So I'll move on to the next slide. Before that, I'll just switch off my video. Okay. And if needed, I'll just switch it back on again. Okay. So there's
Diane. Hey Sam, it's Sean here. I can see there's like 60 attendees in the waiting room, so I just want to make sure that there's people on the call. Doesn't seem clear to me.
My screen says we're in a practice session.
Yeah, see that too. So see the participants.
I don't know if it's lagging. Can you see it now?
Okay. Looks like
Yeah.
some folk
Can
are
you
coming
just
in
go
now.
back to the yeah, can you go? I think there's a bit of a lag actually on Zoom. I noticed there was problems yesterday actually. Sayan, could
yeah, I
you
can
just
go
go back
back
to the
to the
front?
agenda
Yes,
slide.
please. Yes, if you wouldn't mind, go to the front slide. I apologize because it was actually I pressed live and it started the recording, but it didn't actually start. I don't know why I pressed record and it is still recording.
No,
Okay,
that's fine,
we're
Sam.
good.
That's fine.
I can
So we'll
see all of the audience. Let me just quickly do, because we haven't done too much. Thank you, John, for speaking up, because I didn't see that. I pressed the start and it pushed us into the live webinar and I saw an audience, but clearly they didn't see what we were seeing. Apologies, everyone. We will get started again. Okay, so welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on optimizing on-prem deployments, a deep dive into BMC Helix latest releases. Joining me today is Rakeli Nahima and Sayan Banji. They will do their formal introductions shortly, but before we get started, a couple of reminders. You will remain muted until we get towards the end. However, we would love you to put your questions in, and you can find the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen in Zoom if you have any questions during the session. We're also delighted to be joined by a team of panelists that will answer those questions as we go through the session. But until the end, we will just be taking those questions in the Q&A. I'm now going to hand over to Cyan, second time lucky. Cyan, if you want to do your formal introduction and get us started, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Sam. So welcome everyone to the first webinar of BMC Helix 2026. So myself, I'm Shayan Banerjee. I'm working with BMC for the past approximately 20 years, and I'm working out of the BMC Bangalore, India office. And I've worked across different product lines like operations management, which includes AI ops and service management, and of course the with Helix, product lines. Okay. So this is about me, okay? And then now we'll start out with the presentation. I'll move on to the agenda slide. Before that, I'll just switch off my video if needed. I'll switch it back on later. Thank you. Okay, so this is agenda for today's webinar. We'll just talk about the technologies update and, in the Helix products on the on-prem, ITOM and ITSM, the different versions. So right now what we've certified with, okay, that's all the slide, talks about. Then we move on to the sizing and what are the things we've done from the sizing perspective, which leads us to the design partnership program, which is specifically for the ITSM, side of things. And then after that, we move on to the product and capabilities, where we speak more on the some of the features and the capabilities that we've come up as part of the 25.3 and the 25.4 ITSM and the ITOM product lines. Then we move on to some of the security enhancements that we've done as part of these two releases. And then we have the deployment and improvements, okay, that we've done part of 25.3 and 25.4, both for ITOM and ITSM. That takes us to the day two operations, which means that we're all done with the deployments. Now comes the day two activities where we want to observe and do sort of maintenance activities. So we'll talk about what we've done and we've introduced, okay? And then finally we end up with the Q&A. Thank you. So this is the official legal notice, okay? Moving on to the next slide. So we start off with the technologies update. Okay, so normally, our customers would expect, us to update, quickly and adhere to the updates within a short time frame of how the Kubernetes release version, keeping in par with how the Kubernetes versions are released. Okay, so basically this slide, what it talks about is about incrementing the support for Kubernetes version, the OpenShift, Helm, the Nginx to an up-to-date version metrics as per the latest available in the market. So as we can see, the 25.3 release, we are supporting ranging the Kubernetes 1.29 to 133, OpenShift 4.16 to 4.19, the Helm 3.18, and the Ingress Nginx from 1.1.5 to 1.13.2, and similarly we have a very similar version certification for 25.4. Just to point out that in the coming days, we are certifying a 25.4 release with OpenShift 4.20. Okay, so this has been planned and it should be available in the coming releases. Moving on to the next slide. So we talk about in this slide about the Nginx deprecation. Now, this is an announcement that has come from the Kubernetes community regarding the retirement of the Nginx Ingress controller, and that will happen in March 2026. So from BMC end, we've tried to come up with a clear, transition strategy. Okay, so at present, so currently, Helix on-prem versions 23, 3.04 and ITOM 24.3 and the later versions, we already support the F5 Nginx Plus. Okay. Now, in terms of future certifications, so starting with version 26.1, BMC Helix will test and we will certify the F5 Nginx community. Okay. And we will also test and certify uh, like sort of backwards compatibility with versions 25.3 and 25.4 as well. Okay. So the ongoing support for F5 Nginx will follow the official F5 lifecycle for timely updates and compatibility. So the current Nginx Plus is R36, which would be certified with 26.1, and we will also certify the latest community version. Okay. Now, in terms of the transition period, so the Kubernetes Nginx that we are using as of now, so we will continue to test it for compatibility through 26.1, and the testing would end as part of 26.2. So from a customer point of view, we would expect, to migrate to the Nginx Plus or upgrade to 25.3 or the later version to leverage the F5 Nginx community. Okay, so that would be sort of a action item from the customer, and that's the request we would be having to the customer point, from the customer point of view. Okay, now moving on to the next slide. So this is sizing, and this is one of the important things. In any deployments, be it ITOM or ITSM, there's the first thing after, as part of the planning and then the requirement. So as part of the planning and hardware, the procurement. So this is one of the major things that we talk about, and a lot of discussions goes on. So moving on regarding the sizing. So as part of 25.3.01, we came out with a flavor called the ITSM Core Flavor, as part of the Service Management 25.3.01 release. So this was a new flavor which was aimed at deployments where customers are not using ITSM or other BMC Helix products, like let's say the digital workspace, DWP or the business workflows. So in that case, they can just use the core flavor for AR server or IS based custom applications. Okay. Now, or CMDB. Now, as part of our future plan, we are also, planning to take out the CMDB as well, and it will be sort of an add-on to the ITSM core flavor. So the ITSM core flavor is during the deployment. If you select it, it will install everything, but it will not load most of the forms, okay, into the memory, and it will also scale down the unused pods. Okay, so in this way, the memory and the CPU resources required are much more smaller. Okay. Now the other thing is we also have this ability of Helix GPT that can be deployed as an add-on on top of the core flavor. So for example, for ITOM only customers, they don't need the full ITSM, right? So they just need the core flavor. Okay. So for them, they can just deploy the Helix GPT as an add-on. Now, just to let you guys know, there are further enhancements, improvements going on, okay, just to deploy a smaller footprint for service management for the ITOM, okay. But still, this is under discussion, okay, and it's still under planning stage, okay, but we just wanted to let you guys know. Moving on to the next slide. So this is the minimized platform footprint from the platform common services end. So in 25.3 and in 25.4, we released, in phased wise approach of, and we did an enhancement and introduced, an enhancement to the PCS, that is the platform common services. What it does, it will, once I select in the deployment manager, the SKU or the product, whichever I'm selecting as a customer. For example, I just select monitor, okay, for BHOM or AI Ops or BHCO, okay. So it will deploy only the required platform services. So at the back end, the deployment manager takes care of it. So by this, we are making sure that a smaller footprint is maintained, okay. Like if I'm using a specific per product like monitor, only those related platform services are deployed and not other additional services, okay. So in the future, we are also planning to allow adding Helix dashboards on top of the ITSM Core Flavor. Of course, I mean, in that case, it will require a little bit more platform common services to be deployed as part of the core flavor. Now, sizing the core flavor, it's a little bit tricky, and that's why we introduced, a program called as a design partnership program, which will shortly be presented by my director, Rakeli Nehemia. Okay. Before that, there's one more aspect of sizing which I wanted to let you guys know, and that is the extra small sizing capability or the category that we've come up from the item end. Okay. So this is to address the gap for customers who need a footprint slightly larger than the compact, yet smaller than the small. Okay. So to address this, a new extra small sizing category has been introduced. And this, as of now, so this category is aimed at BHOM event only customers, okay, requiring a small sized platform. So, I mean, the benefits as we can make out, it would be, cost, in terms of cost, it will be optimized because customers can avoid over provisioning of resources, reducing infrastructure cost. Okay. Flexibility wise, it provides a tailored sizing option for the mid-tier environments or POC deployments. Performance efficiency, it also balances the resource allocation for environments that don't fit neatly into the existing categories that we have. Okay. So with that, we come to the end of the sizing, the discussions that we have with respect to sizing. But now I'll just hand it over to Rakeli Nehemia, my director, and she's managing the overall, the platform and the on-prem from the product management point of view, and she'll be taking you guys through the design partnership program. Rakeli.
Yeah, thank you, Sayan. So, as Sayan said, my name is Racheli Nehemia. You can call me Rachel if it's easier. I'm leading the platform team and the on-prem deployment specifically. And let's go to the next slide and dive into the design partnership, or what is it about. So it's important to understand how we do deployment sizing. We use a set of profiles which we certify and we test in our PSR labs based on parameters which are product specific. In the ITSM world, we use the concurrent users concept of how many users, but on the ITOM side, we have other elements like devices and other product parameters. Additional elements we look into is like the amount of transactions and how complex is your integration, how much data do we have in the database and stuff like that. We run our testing in the lab to size these profiles and the peak load environments and scenarios so that we make sure the deployment is successfully running Helix scenarios in these load scenarios and doesn't fail at all times. So those numbers are the ones that we provide and document with every release and share as our sizing guidelines to customers. So if you go to the next slide, the problem is when we come to the core flavor sizing. So the core flavor, as Sayan introduced it, it's targeted for customers only using custom applications for the most part, or using the very minimal IS for running HelixGPT. And we don't have a way to know upfront which applications are going to be run on this platform. When we test internally, we test products that we are very well familiar with. We have test scenarios for, and we run for our customers in our SaaS environments. So we have the good tooling and understanding of what scenarios would load the system and how, and the amounts of resources required for small or large deployments in terms of how those elements impact the sizing and the performance of the system. When you come to run a custom application, everything is possible, right? We don't know exactly what the customer might have in their own environment that might impact that scenario of performance of the deployment in terms of how many integrations, how many customizations do they have, how many forms did they create, and so on and so forth, right? So we came up to an understanding that a single sizing profile that we build might not be the right way for such a diverse scenario. So if you go to the next slide, currently what we do, we base our sizing for the core flavor on the full flavor sizing. The assumption we make for ITSM is that we test ITSM. It's the largest application that we have in our stack. Whatever impact it incurs in terms of performance on the system is probably going to be the highest. So if we measure internally with ITSM, all other applications run on top of our platform would be also successful. If we provide the amount of resources required, we have a kind of mix of users running also digital workplace, and we measure other elements like adding HelixGPT scenarios as an add-on, and so on and so forth. But for the core flavor, what we can do today is we can take whatever we had in the full flavor testing, and we use the default configuration for the small sizing profile as an assumption of this platform should be good enough for running an AR system custom applications. And we take down the scale down pods sizing that we measured. So we deduct them from the sizing. But again, this is a default sizing of a small flavor tested PSR lab in BMC based on the ITSM suite. So we're not certain this might be suitable for all customers. And that means that the sizing might need to be adjusted for your deployment. So if you go to the next slide, what we decided to do in order to understand how we're going to tackle this, Sayan, if you can go to the next slide, thank you. So we've come up with a design partnership program where we invite over Remedy AR customers or Helix customers who run custom applications only to join us, and we will help you to best optimize your solution, your deployment sizing to your specific application. what it means, we need to collaborate together in order to understand the sizing requirements based on your application characteristics. There will be needing some performance testing on the customer end to do a pre-check or understand the requirements. BMC team will help you do the adjustments from sizing perspective. And we will, on our side, learn better on the parameters that impact that sizing of the core flavor from real world applications that you guys run in your production. So this is a collaborative operation to help you get better optimized sizing for your custom application while letting us learn from your use case and your applications on what would be the best way to optimize and size the core flavor. And we might end up saying, okay, there's no one size fit all. There's no same mechanism of profiling for core flavor, or we might end up understanding better based on this data collected from these design partnerships that we can create some kind of a profiling system for core flavor sizing. At least that's the goal of this partnership. So I invite you over if you are an ITSM AR customer, AR server custom application customer, to contact us and join us with this design partnership. Will help you get your core flavor sizing to the best optimized size that you need for your specific application. And that's it about the design partnership, and I'll hand it over back to Sayan. We have a lot to go.
Thank you, Raquel. That was, pretty good detail on the design partnership program, and I'm pretty sure the customers have got a better idea of how to, go about it and then reach out to us. Okay. So, now let's move on to the next part of the webinar, that is the new products and the capabilities. So the HelixGPT support for the AI ops, okay? Now, the HelixGPT manager and the ITSM HelixGPT service, it's to be used by the AI ops on the ITSM side. Now, it's fully delivered with OpenAI API support in 25.4 release, okay? The required AIOps HelixGPT services were actually added to the item side as part of 25.3, and the OpenAI API support in 25.4 we have added it, and now we also have the AIOps bar, so that is the best action recommendation as well as the HelixGPT manager from the ITSM side. So the customer has to deploy the AIOps trained HelixGPT model on Google Vertex or Microsoft Azure, and that's how we need to go about it. No need to run the interops pipeline for AIOps and HelixGPT only deployment, since for an AIOps customer there's no ITSM or no foundation data needed for ITOMs or AIOps only customer. Okay. So the HelixGPT for ITSM was already added, as part of 23.3.04, but then there we did some improvements and enhancements added in the latest version. So BMC Helix recommendation would be always to use it with the 25.3 and above, okay? Otherwise, you might end up doing some manual configurations. And just to let you know, the large language models for HelixGPT, it can be in the cloud or locally installed, okay, using the BMC supported models. Going to the next slide. Okay, so this is about installing the BMC Helix automation console and the vulnerability resolver as part of the ITOM deployer. So we have the deployment manager. So what we've done, we've given an option to check both the BHAC and the vulnops as part of the deployment manager, and also BHAC can also be installed as a standalone server deployment only with the platform common services as part of the item deployer. The vulnerability operations, okay, or the vulnops, that needs and has a dependency on BHOM, AIOps, and BHOC to be deployed. So basically, if you just select, vulnops, it will ask you to and to check that if you've deployed BHOM, AIOps, and BHAC. Moving on to the next section where we talk about some of the security improvements that we've done. And we start off with the default security context that is part of all any new Kubernetes manifests actually must include a default security context with groups like fs group, run as group, and run as user values. So as part of this, so we're adding a default security context to all the Kubernetes pod and the container specifications. Okay, configure the security context to include fs group, run as group, and run as user fields. Just a quick description. So the fs group basically controls the file system group permissions for volumes mounted by the pod. Run as group, it will define the primary group ID for the containers processes. Run as user defines the user ID under which the containers processes will run. Now, why it's so important? It actually important because it prevents any kind of privilege escalation. It also enforces list privilege by running workloads under non-root user. And of course, it aligns with compliance and audit requirements such as the BSI and any other security standard. Let me move on to the next slide. Okay. So in this slide, we are talking about the health checks for every pod. Okay. So as I was talking about the BSI security standard in the last slide. So as part of the BSI standard, it mandates that all containerized applications implement readiness and liveness probes for health monitoring. So these probes will ensure the Kubernetes can actually manage the pod life cycles, like restarting or removing pods when any of the services fail. Currently, Helix does not fully meet this requirement, so which actually creates compliance gaps for customers. Okay, and then they have to enforce using some other tools. So as part of this feature, we've implemented the readiness and liveness probes across all the Helix container. Okay, so it will ensure compliance with BSI and any other security standards that is critical for any government and regulated customers. It also improves reliability by enabling Kubernetes to automatically detect and recover from failures. And of course, it reduces the operational risk during deployments, upgrades, and restarts by validating the container health in a proactive manner. And of course, in a way, we are enhancing the customer trust by adopting, these kind of security sensitive measures, okay, which is prevalent in the enterprise market. Now we talk about the certificates-based authentication. So it's defined and implemented as a standard approach for supporting certificate-based authentication across all the on-prem container deployments. Uh, so basically, the customer has to just create a valid public certificate, and in the Helix URL, it will prompt where the customer has to load it. So once the user selects the certificate, then they can go ahead and access the your URL. So in a way, it meets any kind of enterprise security requirements for regulated industries, and also avoids, in terms of market competitiveness, it avoids losing deals to competitors offering certificate-based authentication. And of course, we have the operation efficiency where it, reduces any kind of ad hoc customizations and any kind of support over it. Moving on to the next slide. So over here, we talk about the HSO, the Helix single sign-on, multi and pattern authentication scenarios. Okay. So as part of this feature, we've enabled the realm identification by using patterns to control user access based on the username pattern and the IP range pattern. So this capability will ensure that only approved users can now log in into the service management applications. So we've also enabled seamless authentication, between the service management applications and the BMC Helix platform hosted on different domains as part of this feature by using a couple of variables and parameters like enable RSS or multi-domain in the Helix on-prem deployment pipeline. So this will enable the BMC Helix single sign-on to handle login requests from applications on different domains. So users actually don't need to re-authenticate themselves again and again when switching between the domain. Okay. So for example, I mean your let's say the service management app is on one domain like servicemanagement.company.com, and my Helix platform is on another like platform.company.com. So with this multi-domain authentication enabled, users can log in once and can access both without any kind of extra sign-ins needed. With this, I'll just move on to the next slide where we talk about the external vault integration. Okay. So as part of 25 3.01, okay, we have come up with this integration with external vault for CyberArk. We also have, Thashikov, which is there in the roadmap. As of now, we are supporting CyberArk. Okay, so this was done in sort of two phases. So as part of 25.3, we made sure that any password that is updated in the vaults gets reflected in the global secret that we are providing. Now there's a mapping that's set between the vault and the keys in the global secret. Okay. So 25.3, the when we brought in this feature, we made sure that the password is getting reflected. But to reflect that password in the global secret, you need to restart few services. Okay. And that service will restart. In fact, there was a bunch of services. It was a little bit cumbersome, and that service restart was manual. So as part of the 25.4 release, what we've done, we've automated that service restart. So now you just go into the vault, okay, and any password update, it will automatically get reflected into the global secret. Okay, we don't have to do any kind of manual restarts. Okay. So with this, we are more or less, we're done with the security part of things. Now let me move on to the deployment improvements. Okay. Okay. So this slide talks about image list contains only required services. Okay. So the main objective of this improvement is to streamline the Helix on-prem ITOM deployments by ensuring that the image list that is generated during the installation contains only the services selected by the customer rather than all the services. So basically, if I'm selecting, a specific SKU like BHOM or AIOps or let's say BHCO, so I will only have those specific, images. Okay. And there, we've published the document of how to do it. Okay. So as part of this release, so the dynamic implement, we've implemented the dynamic image list, generations. Okay, based on, as I was telling, what we select or what the customer selects. Okay, and then it then gives a report in a simple CSV output. Okay, and this report will contain the images very much specific to the products or the SKUs that the customer has selected. Okay, so this from a deployment point of view, it helps a lot because if we can understand, it eliminates the unnecessary images. of course, reducing storage and any kind of overhead computation. Okay. At the same time, it speeds up, deployment. Okay, by focusing on only required services. It also ensures correct image selection based on the SKU and the dependencies. So basically, it minimizes any kind of configuration errors. Okay. And in terms of operational efficiencies, so the customer, it of course, I mean, onboarding with automated image list generation, okay, it simplifies, I mean, it's a much more simplified, QA, I mean, a testing approach. And of course, the documentation where, we've just published the documented link where just customer goes over there and selects the SKU they want, and then just click on a button called download image, and it automatically, generates that for you. So it's as simple as that. Yeah, so let me move on to the next slide. That was about the image list. Now, yes, from the ITSM end, we have introduced an upgrade checker to automatically fix issues during ITSM upgrades. So basically, when you're doing your upgrade, this upgrade checker will run in the background, and it will fix any issues which can lead to a potential upgrade failure. Then we've introduced this feature of email not mandatory. As we all know, in the previous releases, as part of tenant activation, okay, platform common services tenant activation, an email used to be sent to the customer, and then customer had to sign in and in that email, and then that's how the using a username and generate a password, and that's how the tenant used to get activated. Right now, what we've done, based on a lot of feedbacks and issues that we've seen, the email activation, email is still there, but it is not the only way, and it is not the mandatory way. Okay. Let's say, as a customer, if I'm doing a POC and I don't have a valid SMTP, server setup, I can just give some dummy values in the fields in the info.config. Okay. And the deployment still carries on, and at the end of the deployment, it gives you the steps, pretty simple steps, and it gives you a link where you can just click on that link, and then you can do your tenant activation. Okay. Now, for customers who already have valid SMTP, of course they will give their valid SMTP credentials and the server, and they'll get the email. Okay. But then this, we've made the activation process much more simpler and flexible, and it's not only dependent on the email. Then we have this a feature of changing the domain URL post deployment. Now, as an administrator, we can change the domain URL of BMC Helix IT Operations Management and the ITSM after deployment using a documented procedure. So now, why this change is needed? Now, normally the domain change is typically required when aligning the deployment environment with a new organizational domain or a new certificate or any kind of an updated DNS configuration. So this will ensure like all the components, platform, discovery, optimize, service management, use the updated domain for authentication, mapping, and also access. So we have for both ITOM and ITSM, we have documented the steps of how to do those. Then we move on to deploying BMC Helix Intelligent Integration Service with BMC Helix ITOM. Now, as part of 25.4 release, what we've done, when we select intelligent integration in the deployment manager, it will automatically add two intelligent integration services and two jobs, okay, to, and it will deploy those as part of the deployment process, okay. So what it does is, now these two services and jobs give the solution for managing roles and permissions when the intelligent integration is on premises, so deployment. Now, just to let you guys know, the II admin role, which is needed for intelligent integrations, okay, by default, it does not exist on the Helix portal on-prem stack. Okay, this is because in on-prem deployments with the intelligent integration on gateway and with authentication enabled, roles and permissions for the II, that is intelligent integrations, are not available because II services are not available part of the on-prem. So with this change, what we've done, we've made sure that all the required services and the jobs which deal with the access control and the permission that gets deployed. Okay. So there's no manual, configuration that we need to do. Just in the deployment manager, if you're entitled to and you're using intelligent integration, just select intelligent integration and all these would be going, deployed automatically at the back end. Now comes the upgrade path. Okay. So again, uh, this is with respect to minimizing the downtime, okay, or as we call it, the zero downtime upgrade. So it is supported by default during an update of BMC Helix Innovation Suite and applications from version 23 3.x 25 1.01, okay, to 25 3.01 or 25 4.01. So earlier, the ITSM version deployments like 21.3.06 or let's say 22 1.06 will have to upgrade in two hops. Okay, but now we've overcome that. Okay, and just to let you know, the 25 4.1 also supports the direct upgrade from 23.x and above. Now, just one recommendation is, you need to check the Kubernetes stack or the OpenShift stack compatibility. Generally the recommendation would be first to upgrade the Kubernetes version and then the Helix. Okay. So now we move on to, so now, our deployment is done. So I'm done with the day one operations and, stack is ready. The tenants are up and running fine. Okay. So now I go to the day two operations. Okay. So as part of day two operations, one of the important thing is observability. Okay. Like I need to monitor what I'm running, right? Otherwise, how do I know the health of my environments? Okay. So as part of this, we have this thing called, the self-monitoring using BHAM. Now, again, this was released as part of, I would say in two phases. Like we already had this release part of 25.3. Okay. And as part of 25.4, we've made sure the containerized agent is done automatically. The deployment of the containerized agent, importing the monitoring policies, configuring the monitoring policies, okay, dashboards, blueprint import. So all these as part of phase two in 25.4, we've taken care automatically. The steps are documented, it's published, okay. You just have to run a script and it will automatically deploy this agents, the containerized agent, and it will do this configurations. Okay. So just to give you a quick background, what it means enhancing, self-monitoring. It's like if I am a customer using BHAM and that's install, of course, that's on my production stack. So I will have to install another observability stack with BHAM. Okay, so that will be normally my non-prod stack. And that BHAM stack would be, of course, outside my current cluster. Okay, so that if anything, happens to my production cluster, that BHAM observability stack has the ability to monitor and send me an email, send me notifications. Okay, so that's the gist of this feature which we've delivered across two releases, and now the entire thing, both phase one, phase two, the end to end, the thing is automated. Now I move on to image cleanup. Now on my deployment, everything is done, but again, we've seen instances and customer issues, customer feedbacks that hey, my Docker registry, it contains old version of images, and those contain vulnerabilities. Okay, and excuse me. Now, those things are flagged by the security team, okay, at the customer end, and that's how we get to know. And then we decided that, okay, as part of this feature, we will allow deleting images for a given version. Okay, customer needs to choose which version to delete. Okay, and then again the steps for this, it's documented. Okay, and you just have to download from the EPD the respective the utility. Okay, and then you just run it as per the steps given in the document, and it will delete the required images. So you just the customer just needs to make sure which is the image, I mean which are the version of the images they need to delete. Okay, then the other let's say maintainability point of view or day-to operation is backing up of ITOM critical components. So the critical components, as we all know, it should be backed up, to avoid any kind of data loss. So in this version, we have focused on backing up PostgreSQL and OpenSearch events, and then in the coming releases, we will I mean we are planning to deliver backing up of OpenSearch logs and Victoria metrics. Okay, so now the usual recommendation, of course, would be the BMC Helix certified disaster recovery process for backups. But for safety and faster recovery, we are also providing a custom backup solution for the critical, I mean, infrastructure element. Okay, and there are steps which we've documented in the published documentation of how to, I mean, which, guides through a step-by-step process for performing backups from a cluster. Okay. Uh, so just one thing is when we are doing the backup, we need to consider the, size required for the, for the backed up elements. Okay. And then as I was telling, so I mean, everything is documented. And the other thing is, as part of the documented, I mean, of the documentation, we've also mentioned some, default values, like say, a small sized data, you can, back up every hour if at all needed. Now, a medium-sized data you may not need, or you may not want to back up every hour. So it might be every couple of hours, or maybe every 3 hours. Okay. So this is with respect to the backups of the critical infra components, and then we have a thing called the pod disruption budget. So this was something I mean, a feature from the ITOM end that was introduced to address the customer requirements for higher uptime and resilience. So with the PDBs in place, the platform automatically prevents too many pods from being taken offline at once. Of course, at the same time, so it's reducing the risk of service outages during upgrades, any kind of node drains, or any kind of scaling events. Just to let you guys know, this feature is fully automated, so there is no manual configuration needed. It applies to all the critical item services, okay, aligned with the best practices for Kubernetes-based deployments, okay? And also, just for your information, the PDP support for ITSM, we are already discussing, and it's already there in the roadmap. So that's all we had with respect to the day two operations and with respect to this overall webinar. Thank you. Over to you, Sam. Now we can go to the Q&A.
Thank you. And I did have a fear that we might run out of time. We've had lots of questions. We've still got a few in the chat at the moment. So if people don't mind holding on just for a few minutes, we will get through those. So, Cyan, one of the questions that came up, and I can see Kevin had asked one, he would love it to work to be done to customize the default RSSO admin password as part of the platform services deployment. Kevin, I'm just going to find you if you're still here to unmute yourself if you want to talk to the team. I don't know if someone wants to pick up that question as well. Kevin, can you hear us? I can see you've come off mute. I don't know if you've got audio. Hey,
yeah.
hello.
All
Do you
right.
want to,
So
yeah,
actually,
talk to the team?
we're sharing a link here. So my name is Aaron, and I'm
Oh.
work with yeah. So we've got a solution that we use to configure a different RSSO password from the out of the box one, and then I have to modify the deployment scripts in order to maintain that password so it doesn't get reset back or have problems during the deployment of platform services. Right. So out of the box, there's a standard password that BMC uses for RSSO admin, and every time you deploy an upgrade, it wants to use that password again. But we don't want to use that password. It's documented all over the web, and it would be foolish to keep it. So as a part of the process, and we just done up to 25.2 is a latest version that we have, and I still haven't seen a part of the process where you can customize or change the passwords as part of the deployment process. And maybe it is in newer versions, but as far as 25.2, I haven't seen it yet.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. So, excuse me. So basically, what you're telling is, the changing of the RSSO passwords, and once you change it, it should be reflected automatically. Did I get you right? You don't need to
Right. So when you
manually change.
deploy it, there's no part of the configuration where I can set or choose that password. So it gets set per BMC's out of the box in their scripting, and then afterwards I go and change it. But then the next upgrade comes around and I still can't customize or set it. So I have to either set it back to the out of the box default, which you actually can't do using the RSSO interface because the password is not strong enough. You have to, there's a document from BMC where you have to go in through the Postgres database and just overwrite the field. But that besides the point. I have modified the process to allow for customization of the password in our environment, but it requires me to modify your scripts in your deployment, which I'd rather not have to do. It would be great if it was supported by BMC out of the box to bring your own password for RSSO admin and to maintain it through
Thank you.
upgrades.
Yeah, thank you. That's good feedback. So bring your own password for the RSSO admin. Yeah. Yeah, so yes, so we'll take a note of it unless anyone else has any further comments on this. I don't know. Otherwise, I think, yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Kevin.
Actually, it's Aaron. So Kevin or Aaron, I know there was another question in there. Did you want to cover the HANA admin stuff, or is it all combined? Because I saw there was two questions. I don't know if that's
Yeah, it's
you,
sort of
Aaron.
along the same lines.
Okay.
It was me again. Yeah, it's along the same lines. When doing deployments of things, there's some requirement for you to have standardized accounts and passwords. So HANA admin is one of the accounts that gets used in many places, in many areas. And then after the deployment of ITSM, those accounts are used for like HM Web Services, for example, has an admin account that it uses, and some other products that we're seeing. And we don't use all the products in ITSM. We're just getting a digital workplace, for example, but it has its own account and password. And it would be great if there's just more customization available there. I would rather not have HANA admin used at all, or at least for it to be customized. And I personally want each service that needs an admin account to have its own distinct admin account. I want HM Web Service to have its own admin account. And if there's ever a problem in any logs, I can tell, oh, it's the HM Web Service admin account that's doing this, is causing the problem. And oh, this is the digital workplace account that's causing the problem. And it helps narrow it down just from a operations standpoint. So it's just a little bit of feedback there whenever you're working on those areas of the application and deployment. If you can make those accounts distinct and configurable for deployment, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kevin. I think these are great feedbacks.
Great. I have actually just quickly launched the poll as well. Apologies, it wouldn't launch during the session, but if you have got just a bit of feedback on your business where you are, and if you do want to follow up, I'll be sending out a survey post-event. Yeah, please do. Carlos, I saw you had a question. This is our last question we've got in there, and I'm conscious, obviously, we've overrun, but these are all really, really good questions, and we will be running more sessions. Do you want to come off mute and ask your question? Can you hear me, Carlos? I don't know if you can unmute. I'll just ask it to the team quickly now, and then maybe if you want to respond and add anything extra, or just let us know that it's answered your question. So, to the team of panelists, in your experience, is it recommended to do the Nginx conversation as part of the upgrade to 25.4, 26.1, or is it more recommended to perform the upgrade first and afterwards to do the Nginx conversion separately? And apologies if I haven't said it properly. I don't know who wants to pick that up from the team. That's Carlos's question in the Q&A. And Carlos, can you hear us? I can see you've come off mute, but you may have joined via the browser. And if you have, sometimes it doesn't always work, the audio. Yeah, team, can anyone? Yeah, he's got unmuting. Okay, you're having problems. So does anyone want to take that question? I don't know if Cyan or Raquel or the rest of the team can answer that question from Carlos. Cyan, can you hear me?
Yeah, to be honest,
Mark, sorry.
I would do it as a separate step rather than try and complicate an upgrade. There's enough going on with an upgrade as it is, so either do it before or after, depending on the version you're upgrading from. Whether that's yeah. So if you have an environment at the moment that supports the F5 Nginx commercial version, you can do the conversion at any point and then do your upgrade, or do your upgrade and then do the conversion. If you're wanting to use the community version of the Nginx ingress controller, I hope we'll be publishing some documentation as part of, or included as part of the 26.1 documentation will be the steps necessary to switch between, or to move from the Nginx, the Kubernetes Nginx ingress controller to the F5 community one. So watch this space.
Yeah, another way you can look at it is if you're deploying a version of the application and it doesn't support the Ingress Nginx community project anymore, then you would want to have your Ingress controller migrated before you do that install to avoid any risk that there would be anything that would break, right? So you just want to make sure that you have all the prerequisites for whatever version you're going to install in place.
Thank you, John and Mark. Hopefully, Carlos, that's answered your question. If you can just reply into the Q&A and let us know that has, that's great. And then just for those, if you've got like a minute or so, if you want to just answer our polling, which I will share with the team today, because obviously everything that's been shared is really helpful for our team, including the design partnership that Raquel spoke about earlier. I will share those links out on your thank you email, which will be in the next day or so. We will send the recording, the slides that we've used today. And if you do want to do any further follow-up with the team, if you want to provide your details in the survey link, I will then share that with the team and they'll follow up with you. So with that, I'm going to finish the webinar today. We hope you've all found it enjoyable, and thank you, Cyan and Raquel, for presenting today. Thank you to our team of panelists that have helped answer the questions. If
One
there's
more.
any oh, sorry, go on. Yep.
One more thing. This is a starting point for an on-prem webinar series. We plan on doing once a month, so we would love to see you joining to the next ones.
Yes, thank you. And I will share that link out when I've met with the team to get the next one scheduled in February. It's a very busy January. So those that don't already know, I run most of the webinars for BMC Helix. You'll see a lot coming up in January. We will look to get this scheduled in February. And if you've got any other ideas about what you would like to see, including from this team, do reach out and let us know. And we will do our best to get that into the calendar.